I wanted to write a book about poverty that wasn't just about poor people or poor neighborhoods. I thought poverty was a relationship, and I was looking for a process that would allow me to illuminate that. And I thought eviction does that. It brings in tenants and landlords and all sorts of folks from across the city. And I also wanted to understand the link between housing and poverty. I moved into a trailer park on the far south side of Milwaukee, lived there for about 5 months, and then moved into a room in a rooming house in the inner city of Milwaukee and lived there for about 10 months. And from those two neighborhoods followed families getting evicted, followed the landlords doing the evicting. If you get arrested in America, you have a right to an attorney, but you have no such right in civil court. So the vast majority of folks in Milwaukee do not have attorneys, but the vast majority of landlords either have a lot of experience in housing court or do have representation. And under those conditions, a lot of tenants summoned to eviction court don't show up. And so the sound of eviction court in Milwaukee is just a name, a pause, and then 3 stamps signifying default eviction. So what's eviction do to people? Eviction causes loss. People lose not only their homes, but often their stuff, which is piled on the sidewalk or taken by movers. Kids lose their schools, you lose your community. It takes a good amount of time and money to establish a home, and eviction can delete all that. An eviction comes with a mark, which is also a legal process, and that mark or that blemish can prevent you from moving into good housing in a safe neighborhood, because many landlords turn away folks with an eviction on their name. I think we have to conclude that eviction is not just a condition of poverty, it's a cause of it. With this book, we have been able to see a really tangible impact. For example, New York City just passed the first ever right to counsel and housing court. I testified in favor of that change based on the evidence that we've amassed about the consequences of eviction's fallout on families and children. I think the book opened up a new avenue with a very simple claim that it makes, that without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. And housing and eviction are central to understanding inequality in America today.
We are seeing a growing debate about so-called warrior cops, a term that I've heard, and the militarization of police. I think it's very important to remind our fellow citizens that we need a range of weapons and equipment to respond and protect our fellow citizens and protect ourselves. Threat!
We are at war, and you're the frontline troops in this war.
We are preparing for any type of situation. Of course, anything dealing with ISIS is a concern. We do a lot of training in the event that we had a situation like what they had in Missouri.
Disperse immediately.
We have the right to assemble peace.
You are violating the state laws of curfew.
To assemble peace. We have the right. That is our right.
You are violating the state laws of curfew.
There's actually written descriptions for how the equipment should be used, and it says it's specifically not supposed to be used for riot suppression.
I know you for a long time, bro. A long time.
And y'all still killing us.
25 years I've been here.
Killing us.
25 years here, I never killed a man.
So get your man.
Folks, there ain't nobody in Mexico right now complaining about militarization of police. You understand? In the very near future, you will be vindicated.
It's clear.
There's gotta be some drugs here.
We need to put the brakes on the fear, and we need to act rationally. Terrorism works because it makes people irrational, and it makes them destroy themselves.
My interest in creating a film on the militarization of police stemmed from the fact that my father was a police officer for 29 years, and he was actually a SWAT officer for 13 of those years. I was sitting in my apartment in Brooklyn right after the Boston Marathon bombing and saw the police response and realizing that it was far different than my father's era of SWAT. I was interested to know what had changed, and that's what prompted this film. When we look at the militarization of police, we're really talking about the flow of equipment and cash grants to domestic law enforcement. Not only is it the tools, but also the mentality of a military officer and how they may conduct themselves in a war zone has also started to trickle down. It was really important for us to put the camera in situations where we could let scenes unfold for themselves. Instead of a film where it's more expert testimony and talking heads, this is an opportunity for viewers to directly experience many of the headlines that we've seen since Ferguson. We really wanted to point viewers to what was coming down the line in policing. We started to film with technology providers who were returning back from Iraq and Afghanistan with incredible surveillance technology and approaching local law enforcement and selling it to them for very minimal cost. Previously, we fought wars with military hardware, and now we're fighting with surveillance technology, and that's what we're seeing trickle back home to our local law enforcement as well. Do Not Resist was truly an effort on the ground with Laura Hartrick. I shot while Laura produced. We directed it together, and we also edited the film together. Do Not Resist explores the present and the future of American law enforcement, from Ferguson, Missouri, to the militarization of police, to the impact of new technology changing the way that local police departments interact with their communities.
But he basically tells Marbury, the plaintiff,
you came in and you came to the Supreme Court first. And you did that because Congress passed a law that said that you could come to the Supreme Court first. But the Constitution says that you can't come to the Supreme Court first.
So I can't help you.
Nope.
It's not your fault, Mr. Marbury.
But that law was unconstitutional.
And we're not going to follow that unconstitutional directive.
So you see what he did there?
Maybe I see. I don't know if I see.
Well, okay, so you know that part in Star Wars?
I was a weak old man.
The first one, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is fighting with Darth Vader, and he says,
if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
This is like that, but real. Marshall is agreeing to lose. He's found this way to lose. To let Darth Vader strike him down. And that's actually going to make him more powerful. He's basically saying to his cousin, okay, you don't have to give Marbury his commission. And the reason you don't have to give Marbury his commission is because that law doesn't work. Because we, the court, we get to decide when something agrees with or doesn't agree with the Constitution. So, congrats. You win, cousin.
Oh, and by the way, we, the court, have the power to declare things unconstitutional.
That was the sort of Jedi master move.
That's the move.
Instead of jumping off the cliff or laying down, he jukes to the right.
And he establishes a new rule of the game.
Unconstitutional.
Inside this one highly technical, highly political drama between these two cousins, John Marshall sneaks in an atomic bomb. This incredible power. And in Marshall's decision, he wrote,
it's emphatically the duty and province of the Judicial Department to say what the law is.
Say what the law is.
To say what the law is.
And with those words, he made the court what it is today.
More Perfect came from Jad Abumrad, the host of More Perfect, but also the host of Radiolab. In 2013, he had the idea of having the Radiolab staff take a look at the Supreme Court docket to see if they could find any interesting stories. One of the producers came across a case with an intriguing name, Adoptive Couple v. Baby Girl. It ended up being an award-winning episode. Jad was totally inspired, and he decided to start a whole new show that was completely dedicated to telling stories around the Supreme Court, and that begets More Perfect.
Even though More Perfect is not focused on the current docket. It's certainly inspired by the current docket. When you're talking about a current hot-button Supreme Court case, maybe for the public that case is self-contained, but any lawyer knows that case has a history, has a jurisprudential history, has a precedential history, has a procedural history that goes far and far back. You start looking at the underlying rule, and that really becomes your window into the past and your window into these great stories of how we got to where we are.
I think storytelling is really what sets More Perfect apart from other Supreme Court journalism. We have the luxury of going deep and really doing long-form sort of storytelling. A perfect example of that is the episode about Baker versus Carr, the redistricting case from 1962. Justice Charles Whitaker had a nervous breakdown and had to leave the court. You realize that you can explain to people how redistricting and gerrymandering work, but entirely through the lens of a really personal story. More Perfect is stories about race, class, gender, sex, money, politics, kind of all the stuff that we as Americans fight about, but it happens to take place in the arena of the Supreme Court.
More Perfect is about the branch of government you don't get to vote on, so you should pay attention.
In Texas today, Governor Rick Perry signed
in
some of the nation's toughest...
Mississippi could soon begin the fight to eliminate abortion.
Women are going to have abortions. It's just that they are not going to be safe and legal.
The legislature passed a bill that they knew that we could not comply with. And that was the function of the bill. The function is a trap.
In the past 3 years, there have been hundreds of restrictions passed, more than in the past decade.
These rules don't add anything to the safety of women.
This is our pharmacy. The drugs always expire because we never use them. I don't know that we've ever used any of these things in this clinic ever.
They chop away piecemeal at reproductive rights.
There's a 2 or 3 week waiting list for a procedure where time is of the essence.
I remember getting a call once from a patient. She said, "What if I tell you what I have in my kitchen cabinet and you tell me what I can do?"
We've forgotten what this country is about. Dignity is given of God.
I have a hard time forgiving myself.
I want women to talk to each other, to quit shaming each other. I want people to quit shaming women over abortion, period.
I'm on the floor today to give voice to thousands of Texans who have been ignored.
The Supreme Court is going to hear another one of these cases, and it's going to be a showdown.
They're letting politics trump medicine.
You should understand it's not going to happen without a fight.
It is escalating what is happening across the United States.
It's increasingly becoming the case that women's constitutional rights are determined by their zip codes.
I just want more people to start asking who's benefiting. Who benefits?
I started working on Trapped almost by accident. I was filming for a project in Jackson, Mississippi for a different movie. I read in the local newspaper, the Jackson Clarion Ledger, that there was only one abortion clinic in the entire state of Mississippi. And I was really shocked by that. I just called up the clinic and said, "I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I just heard about this, and I wonder if you would mind if we came over this afternoon." When I went there that first day, I met Dr. Parker. So Dr. Parker is the lead character in Trapped. He is an abortion provider, and he just started talking to me about the state of providing abortion, particularly in the South. And he was such a charismatic and interesting person. And when you're a documentary filmmaker, your curiosity is really where things start. I asked if he would be interested in being filmed, and he agreed. And then 3 years later, here we are. I'm a lawyer. I'm attracted to legal stories. While abortion is legal, the greatest threat to reproductive justice is actually a legal battle that's happening in states across America. It doesn't matter if you have a decision in Roe v. Wade being upheld if there aren't any actual clinics. It's what lawyers call, right without a remedy. I've been absolutely thrilled by the response to Trapped. I'm not looking to change anyone's mind. I think abortion is one of those issues where you're entitled to your own beliefs. But what I am interested in is the legal and political issues surrounding abortion. You are entitled to your beliefs, but that doesn't mean your beliefs trump my legal rights. We saw the themes of Trapped be absorbed into popular culture. John Oliver's Last Week Tonight did a whole segment on trap laws where we consulted with them, made the film available, made research available. The film is getting out there, and people are using it and talking about it and debating it. And that's exactly what you want to see as a filmmaker.